Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm going to be playing a vehicle that's so darn overpowered that it practically feels like you're cheating inside the game. This is the Tier 7 German premium tank destroyer, the E25. Today I'm going to be playing this vehicle with a camo net. I know, that sounds unusual. I'm always trying to dissuade people from using camo nets on any of their vehicles because I think there are more competitive options, but the E25 is the one exception in my garage. And the reason for that is we're able to achieve 25% concealment when our camo net is activated, even while we're firing. So just how can a vehicle like this get 25% concealment when it's firing, when most tanks go down to about 5% if they're firing in World of Tanks? Well, that's because the E25 was spawned at a time where tank destroyers had a class-based bonus. A lot like light tanks, you know how light tanks have the same camo rating when they're moving as when they're stationary. All tank destroyers in the game retained more of their camo rating when they fired than other classes. Just so happens that the E25 retains roughly about 30% of its concealment when it fires, whereas other tanks pretty much lose about, I'd say 90%, so they retain about 10% in the game now. Wargaming actually removed this from all of the tank destroyers in the game, except, you guessed it, the premium ones. And so look what we're able to achieve here in the against the SU-100. This Panther is 260 meters away from us, but as we had our camo net activated, even though we were in the bush, and we were so close to it that we would have definitely exposed ourselves when we fired, we don't get spotted. That is what 25% camo rating looks like. Most of the enemy tanks will probably have, I don't know, if they're doing well, 400 meters view range. Now if they've got 400 meters view range and I've got 25% camo, then that means that they're not going to see me at 300 meters, which is truly outrageous. And so how is it fair that we can sit here, we can spot them, we can shoot at them, and it's not until we engage the Super Hellcat, who probably had a really good crew on their vehicle, that they even have a chance to be able to fire back. We combine that with then the base 2,700 DPM on this tank, and we shut down the reward TD as if it was free. So Wargaming removed all of the bonus from the tank destroyer class, i.e. retaining more of its camo rating after it fires. Didn't change it from the E25 of vehicles like the SU-122-44, however. And so now Wargaming have got a real big problem. They're incorporating more ways for you to be able to boost your camo rating in the game than ever. Did you see that we were using a concealment directive? I think they cost between about 10 or 20,000 credits per game. Why not just pump it up a little bit extra? You're going to make those credits back if you penetrate just a few tanks in the E25 anyway. They're also thinking about incorporating more class-based bonuses with regards to camo if they're going to put in the field modifications. And I can tell you that if Wargaming put in Crew 2.0 and they have a way for you to pump up the camo rating even more, they're going to be in a real tricky situation because they don't want to nerf premium tanks like this one because they don't want to annoy their paying customers, definitely at the expense of the game balance. But if they incorporate new features to allow you to pump up your concealment, then tanks like this are going to become even more outrageously overpowered than they already are. If camo rating alone was not enough of a reason to be able to justify why the E25 is outrageously OP, it has, as I mentioned, 2,700 DPM. That's tier 9 tank destroyer damage per minute. It has probably high tier light tank mobility. You can see we're bombing it around here with the vehicle's top speed of 65 kilometers an hour forwards, 20 backwards, and a power to weight ratio that's over 26.5. Its camo rating, while it's moving, due to its low profile, is also exceptionally good. Obviously, even without the camo net being activated. I've got my camo rating up to about 35% when I'm moving in this tank. And because I'm using vents and coated optics, and I've given up the gun rammer on this tank, I also have about 455 meters when I'm driving around with recon and situational awareness on my commander. And for all of you German tank destroyer lovers out there, I thoroughly recommend that you keep a commander in your Borsig, as there are quite few German tank destroyers where they don't have a dedicated radio operator, especially if you're going up the tech tree to be able to get something like the Griller. You'll be finding that your commander is just not quite suited for the E25. One thing I did feel that was very suited here is look at these snipes on this GW Panther we put. 2 in on the move, 1 over the ridgeline, and I felt pretty chipper about shutting down the tier 7 German self-propelled gun there. And that's because this vehicle also has 0.3 base accuracy, meaning that it's very good at keeping its opponents at a decent distance, remaining hidden from them, firing at them without getting spotted, and also, because of that great accuracy, it can deliver pinpoint fire with great DPM. And just look at this. This is outrageous. We're just dancing in between our shells. There's no doubt I got very lucky there, but that is the kind of plays that you can make in the E25. What was that Thunderbolt thinking? That we auto-aim at the player, we drive, we fire, we turn, we aim back at him, we fire, we turn, and we're literally delivering ridiculous damage per minute, of course, with good luck on the move. And that's why this tank is so outrageous. It's incredibly dynamic, and when you start to min-max the tank, it just becomes this force on the battlefield that really, in a situation like this, the enemy are completely at our mercy. And considering this is a premium tank that quite often Wargaming are selling for about 50 euros, yeah, it's definitely Wargaming profiting while making the game worse. The final thing that I should really mention about this tank is that it also has preferential matchmaking, meaning that it never has to deal with tier 9 tanks. And that this thing, because of that, will quite often be seeing tier 5 or tier 6 opponents, of which we didn't see too many in this game, although we did manage to brush away a couple of them. And this is the worst possible matchmaking that you'll have to deal with if you decide to play an E25 against the tier 8 tanks. All of this just leads to the E25 being one of the most toxic tanks to meet on the battlefield. I think the only saving grace of this tank is that for some reason, I just don't think the more dedicated players or the best players are often getting in their E25s because it's not at tier 8. If this thing was at tier 8, which it could probably quite easily be, it would be an absolute blight on even high tier matchmaking. And I can only imagine what all of the more casual players who are just trying to make their way up at tier 5 and tier 6 are thinking, now that Wargaming is currently selling this at the moment in the premium store. How are you meant to play against this thing? Even if you have 400 meters view range, you're not going to see it until 300 meters. And quite often your low tier tanks, you're only going to have 400 meters view range if you're sitting there with your binoculars activated. Alright, so far in this game we managed to pick up 4 kills, 3,000 damage, and right now it's just about trying to get a shot into the top of the Crusader and then turn around to see if we can also pick up a shot on this SU-8. This thing, since I've set it up without the gun rammer, I love the coated optics vent setup on this tank, with the camo net as well. However, if you're a free-to-play player and you don't have a great crew, and you're not willing to use a premium consumable, I would actually thoroughly recommend that instead you use binoculars on this tank instead of the coated optics, and you probably drop the vents to be able to use a gun rammer to maximize the vehicle's DPM. And for all of the good luck we've had this game, yeah, we don't really have the good luck at the end of the battle with some atrocious RNG stopping us from being able to finish off the IS-3 on the enemy team. And I also must give a massive thank you to the Ferdinand called Tom Tank on our team, who I said in caps lock, "Can I kill him, please?" asking for the Ferdinand to reset, and it looks like the Ferdinand did exactly that. So big thank you to you, Tom Tank, for allowing us to be able to go on. And do you know what? It's actually usually a good idea to reset the cap if you know that your team is able to win, because everybody, I believe, in the whole battle is going to get more experience if the entirety of the enemy team dies. And considering we were playing a vehicle that practically feels like it's cheating in World of Tanks, it's unsurprising that we get a huge result here. Dimitri's medal for destroying 3 self-propelled guns, a patrol duty medal as well for enabling our allies to deal a significant amount of damage as we were spotting the enemy tanks, a high caliber for the 3,800 damage that we dealt here, a tank sniper for dealing it at long range as you would expect from an E25, and a top gun for the 6 kills that we picked up. This was 1,822 base experience, and even though we resupply everything, including the gold rounds that we fired and the directive, the camo directive for 20,000, we make a 40,000 credit profit with this tank. So the E25, a vehicle that I truly hate to see being sold in World of Tanks, because whenever one is purchased, the game gets a little worse. Vehicles like this should not exist in World of Tanks, and they should definitely not exist in their state, considering that more mechanics are being added to the game to enable them to pump up their camo rating and to pump up all of their other statistics, which were clearly unbalanced because Wargaming removed the capacity from the entire tank destroyer class. And I can only imagine what this vehicle could be capable of in the future if Wargaming add in the equipment modifications, and more importantly, if we're going to see Crew 2.0 going in the game again. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down, and let me know in the comments what you think about the E25. Do you feel that this tank is an absolute blight on the World of Tanks landscape, or do you not have too many problems finding and dispatching of these things, as they usually maybe burn themselves out? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.